about how we have sort of, as a people, lost our access to land over the years. Allotments are really kind of the last little scraps of land that we've got from what was once access to huge areas of Britain. You know, the common man was able to farm strips of land which were communally ran and had access to woodland where you could forage and pastures where you could graze your animals, and all of that was lost, and actually allotments kind of sprang from that moment, because when all of that was lost during the enclosures, there was just a huge amount of poverty. Suddenly people couldn't live in the way that they had, and so allotments really came out of that, of people realising that people had to have access to scrap of land. And I kind of want to go back through time and find out who were the people that actually dug this soil before I did, and just give this little humble plot of land a kind of the dignity of researching it and finding out what's happened here. That's my current little project, and how I'm kind of lavishing my love for this plot upon it.
Have you found any little golden nuggets?
Well, I have. I've got a few names already. Let me show you what I've got. I've got here a copy of our tithe maps. The tithe maps were made all over the country. Everyone should be able to track down their local tithe map. What they really wanted to do is to find out exactly how big land was and who had what. So that's what I've got here, but what it kind of translates to is a really useful resource for kind of looking back at your particular land. So I get my bearings by the church, which is over there, and this is the local Horfield Common, and then this here, this little lane here, is this lane that runs along the top here, which is a beautiful old lane, which now right in the sort of central Bristol. It's got all sorts of names. Donkey Lane, I'm not quite sure why that is. Dead Man's Lane it's called, and that was because it used to be the road that was used to carry people to the church over here, but it's still known now, even now, as Dead Man's Lane. So this is my field, and it's called Hither Gaskins, and rather than it being a name of a person, Gaskin, they think that that meant grass enclosure, which kind of gives you an idea of what this field would have been. It would have been a grass enclosure. And what I find really interesting about looking at this map is kind of how little there is here. And a local historian was saying to me, well, it's because the ground wasn't actually very good. The local name for the area is Horfield, which actually means muddy field. So the ground was considered really awful, wasn't particularly worth growing vegetables in. There wasn't a large population that gathered around it because of that. And it was actually, you can see how high up we are here. This is actually one of the highest points in Bristol. And she said to me that it would have been kind of like hill farming country. And I said, oh, it sounds like a really awful place to put allotments. And she went, yeah, it is. But I think that's quite interesting in itself, because actually allotments were pretty much all built on scraps of land that were considered fairly useless for any other reason. And actually what allotments show everywhere is that you take these useless little scraps of land and you give them to individual people, and they compost and they manure and they turn them into something that's actually really worth something and really special. So you can take this absolutely godforsaken, hilltop, muddy, dreadful land that nobody had even bothered to farm. It was just a grass enclosure, and can turn it into this, which is producing fruit and vegetables in the middle of winter, and all sorts of things. So I think that's quite interesting. When I first saw that, I was quite disappointed. I wanted it to be a kind of a centre of a community and have had lots of people working on it, but actually that's just not how it was. It was just bleak and desolate, and nobody was here.